please turn off your cell phones and let roll call show that the mayor is absent. Reason being is he did have surgery on his shoulder. He fell on it a couple months ago or whatever. He had surgery on it today. If I understand, he's doing well, but he's very high right now with the medication. Okay, so now we'll stand up, and Councilman Andazola will do the pledge, and Councilman Lopez will do the prayer for us.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, thank you for the many blessings you've given me, and I'm thankful that we did have a fair. People got out in joy and had a good time, and it seemed safe, and nothing bad reported that I caught up with and stuff. But thank you, Father, that please add another hedge of protection around our employees, Father, so that they're protected and their families. I ask you to be with us tonight so that our decisions are made in wisdom and the betterment of our people in residence. And I ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Okay, do we have any comments on agenda items, non-agenda items? No? Okay, then we'll move on to public hearing. Public hearing will be open in compliance with Arizona Revised Statute 38.431.02. Okay, the public hearing is open regarding use of Community Development Block Grant, better known as CDBG funds.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. I'm here just to introduce Keith Dennis, who's here with the CDBG Program Manager with SEGO. He's got a presentation, and then we'll move on through the public hearing. He'll conduct the public hearing.
Thank you, Lance. Members of the council, Vice Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Keith Dennis. I'm the Community Development Program Manager for Southeast Arizona Governments Organization, and I run the CDBG program for the four-county SEGO region. And it's time to start talking about Safford's CDBG, which is coming up next year. And we're getting a nice early start on that public process, which I applaud you for. Very quickly, I'm going to go through this as quick as I can. I know everybody loves PowerPoints, but I'm going to try to keep it brief. We're going to talk a little bit about what CDBG is. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that Safford has done with its CDBG allocation in previous years. And then finally, this is going to be a public hearing where we're going to solicit ideas for what we can do with the CDBG funds that Safford's going to get next year from members of the public, members of staff, members of the council. So that's the plan. So what is CDBG? It goes back to 1974. Signed. There's a picture of Gerald Ford signing it into law, and this money is appropriated by Congress, and it is distributed out through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the purpose is expanded economic opportunities, suitable living environments, decent housing, particularly for people of low to moderate income. So we'll talk a little bit about how CDBG works in Arizona. About 10, 12 years ago, Sierra Vista crossed the threshold into having more than 50,000 persons in its corporate boundaries or jurisdiction, and as a result of that, they went to what they call entitlement, where they work directly with HUD and they get those funds directly from Housing and Urban Development. That's an example of an entitlement city now. The bigger cities in the state, Phoenix, Tucson, Pinal County now, those have gone entitlement and they participate in their CDBG and other types of federal funding directly with those federal agencies. But for the rest of us, the Arizona Department of Housing takes those funds every year that they get from HUD through Congress or from Congress through HUD, and it gets distributed out to the rural areas. And you can see a map here, these rural councils of government. You can see us down there in the lower right corner. That's Seago's region, Cochise, Graham, Santa Cruz, and Greenlee counties. And those funds, they get about $10.5 million every year, and they divide that up after they take their share. And that goes out to all of the councils of government around the state for the rural program. There's 3 types of CDBG. There's a regional account, which is what brings us here tonight. There's an annual state special projects competitive account and a biannual competitive Colonius set-aside account. We're here because next year Safford is going to get its regional account allocation. But there's nothing stopping Safford or any other community from participating in the state special project round. That's every year. And for areas that are designated as a Colonia by the Department of Housing, they can participate in that biannual Colonia set-aside round. The Sego region, we don't have the numbers out from HUD, from the Department of Housing. We'll probably get those around late March, early April. So as I said, we're getting a nice early start on all this, and that's a good thing. This year, the Sego region got about $1.3 million in the regional account, and we're anticipating that it'll be about that next year. It goes up and down a little bit, but it stays pretty steady. So there's a method of distribution that's voted upon and decided upon by Sego's executive board, made up of elected officials from around the Fort County region. Vice Mayor Mr. Ortega currently serves on Sego's executive board. They determine this method of distribution, which is our rotation schedule for the Fort County region. And the rotation schedule, this is just a basic of how it goes. You can see Graham, it's every 4 years. It's Graham, Safford, Thatcher, Pima, and then it starts over. So Pima was 2 years ago. Thatcher was last year. This year it's Graham County, and then in a few months it's going to be Safford's turn to put in an application. So the councils of government are mandated by the state to assist the communities that are up for CDBG funds to actually help you put your application together, determine whether a project is eligible for CDBG funds, which I'll get into how we do that in a moment, and basically making a nice, concise, compliant application that's going to be a winner for the city. The towns and the communities, the counties, they have the option of hiring Sego to administer those grants if they want. If you do, you don't have to go through a procurement process where actually councils of government are exempt from procurement. That's an option that cities and towns have, but we are state mandated to be all involved in the application process itself, which is why I'm here tonight. So only a city or a town or a county is eligible. You can designate a nonprofit as the sub-recipient if you have a nonprofit that is worth their salt and has a good record and you feel you can trust them with that. The city is ultimately responsible for those funds, so it's important to have a good working relationship with a nonprofit or a special district if the city wants to pass those funds down to some community organization or local nonprofit. It does happen. Were you going to say something, sir?
Yes, sir, I was going to ask you on for a nonprofit, it can only be one nonprofit, or you split it between nonprofits?
The answer is almost certainly just one. It's possible that depending on the project or the public service that you wanted to provide, if it took two nonprofits to do that, it's possible. That's a new one on me, to be honest, and that's okay. But typically it would be one sub-recipient, one nonprofit.
And if you select an entity or something and they fail to meet their obligation, are we the ones on the hook for it?
It's important to have good legal representation for such eventualities.
Okay.
With a nice, clear, it's your tail end if this doesn't work, if you don't perform, that kind of thing, right? So that you're
Yes, sir.
protected. I've seen what happens, what can happen when that doesn't happen, and it gets a little tense, but it can be worked through, right? So you can't use CDBG money for regular government business. There's certain kinds of government activities that you can do with it, like fire trucks, fire stations, removal of architectural barriers to allow Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. But you can't build a city hall or things of that nature with CDBG money. It's supposed to benefit people. Right, I talked about the special district or nonprofit, so we can move on. You can use CDBG for public works. You can use it for housing. You can use it for owner-occupied housing rehabilitation, which is a great way to make improvements in a neighborhood for maybe people on fixed income or people that aren't planning on flipping their house anytime soon and just want to live in it. And maybe I'm on Social Security and disability and I've lived here a long time and I don't have money for a new roof and I'm not planning on moving anywhere. You can develop a little program whereby you can go fix houses one at a time or even several at a time on like tiers of minor home repair, moderate, major, complete tear down and rebuild, and everything in between. So you can use it for housing needs, housing programs, and things of that nature. You can use them for facilities, improvements to parks, as Stafford has done in the past, libraries, senior centers, health clinics, emergency service providers, shelters for victims of domestic violence or homeless shelters. You can use it to fund public services if you're going to increase the capacity of that public service by 25% or more. So say you have a Head Start and it's got 4 teachers, you have to hire at least one more to make a 25% increase. It's always a good idea to figure out, well, how do we fund that position after the 2-year period? Because once the CDBG funds run out, you're still on the hook to provide that benefit for 5 years. But it can be done to ramp up a new public service or expand an existing one. But any of these types of projects I've just gone over, they've got to meet one or more of the 3 CDBG national priority objectives in order to be eligible. So let's talk about what those are. The main one is primarily benefiting low to moderate income people. In a specific service area, let's say you have a sidewalk project you want to do. If everybody along that stretch of road, you may have to do an income survey, or if they're in an area that's considered by HUD or the Census Bureau, American Community Survey, to be an area of low to moderate income, and it's going to benefit that whole census block group, then you're gold, right? If you're getting more specific in a smaller area, you may have to do an income survey of a specific area to determine that at least 51% of the people in that area are low to moderate income. And then there are specific target groups that are automatically considered low to moderate income for the purpose of CDBG, and I'll show you, I think the next slide has that. The second objective is to eliminate slum and blight conditions. If the council has already designated an area as a slum and blight, then it could be qualifying regardless of the income of the people in that neighborhood, and it could receive and benefit from CDBG funds. And then the third national objective is an urgent need related to health and safety issues. The Yarnell fire in up northwest of Phoenix several years back, they got a CDBG grant to help with disaster relief after that fire. If you remember, that was a tragic event, but that was disaster relief, right? So you can do things like that with it. If you've got a wastewater treatment plant that's failed and ADEQ has put you on notice, you have an urgent need that we're not going to have a sewer system anymore if we don't do something. That's the kind of thing that would qualify as an urgent need. Yep. Kind of talked about this. If you're under the low to moderate income benefit, basically whatever you're doing, whatever the structure, if you're doing modifications to a building or rehabbing a home, you just have to be able to prove that the beneficiaries are going to be, more than half of them are going to be people of low to moderate income. Yep. And low to moderate income is 80% or less of the average income for families of that same size in an area, right? In Safford, per the latest numbers, a family of 4 that makes $51,300 or less qualifies as low to moderate income. Currently, HUD considers Safford to be 39% low mod overall. And again, those numbers change just a little bit from year to year. We'll be getting the new numbers from HUD next spring. And I've been at this for 4 years. I haven't ever seen them change by more than a point or two. So whatever things are now, you can reasonably expect, don't quote me on this, but you can reasonably expect them to stay relatively similar as the years go on. Or at least between now and when your applications due, put it that way. So, if it's an area-wide benefit, like I was saying before, you say you have a census block group, and you know it's a low to moderate income area per the census. You want to put a new water line through that neighborhood, and it's going to benefit the whole census block group. The block group's more than 51% low to moderate income, you qualify, you're good. If it's a sidewalk that really only serves like a little side street, now you might have to get more specific and actually hit the ground with an income survey. Could be the whole town, could just be a neighborhood. Then you have limited clientele. I mentioned a moment ago that some groups, categories of persons are automatically considered low to moderate income for the purpose of CDBG. Abused children, the elderly, victims of domestic violence, homeless persons, people with disabilities, people that are illiterate, migrant farm workers, etc. Those are all considered low to moderate income. Even if they're not low income, they just count as that, as a potential beneficiary. So let's go with this. So if you've got the slum and blight thing, that's usually a legislative act. Again, you've got a little box drawn around a neighborhood, and it's a legislative act that declares such and such neighborhood to be a slum and blight. That would qualify any kind of project that's otherwise eligible for CDBG could happen in that neighborhood after such a designation.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Would the slum and blight area have to be declared federally or state?
Local.
Local?
Yes, sir. Not the state legislature, not Congress, this body.
I just didn't know because it's federal money. So.
Yes, sir, I understand. But no, it would be an action taking here at the local level.
Okay.
So I've kind of talked about these. I'm just gonna, if there's a serious hazard of health hazard, or it's disaster relief, something that's just come up, those are the kinds of things that get you into the urgent need category. So moving on, some past CDBG projects, playground ADA improvements. We all remember that. Actually, Graham County has chosen as their project to make similar improvements to their county fairgrounds, similar to what Safford and Thatcher have done with previous rounds. Hopefully no more snakes in the playground area. Hopefully. In 2014, the Jensen Addition water services and sewer cleanouts, that's a previous project. And then there was a sidewalk project north of 70, east of 8th Avenue from a decade ago, just to give you an idea of some of the things that Safford has chosen in the past to use its CDBG money for. So we're estimating, going off this year's numbers, $271,659 for your regional account allocation for next year. You can combine with other funds for a bigger project. You can use CDBG as matching funds for some other kind of project. You don't need any matching funds yourselves to do anything as long as it fits that budget. If it's something more expensive than that, then you may have to come up with an additional source of funds, and that could be a grant, or it could be funds out of the general fund, But it's always good to find a way to do it within the budget that's allowed if you can, right? And if anybody's going to be displaced, as a result of that, like temporary work taking place, you've got to have a policy in place for how you're going to provide for those people if they are displaced. And that, I haven't seen that happen yet, but it could. So tonight is a public hearing, right? And when I'm finished talking and everything, we're going to open it up to, with the Vice Mayor's blessing, we're going to open it up to everybody to have a robust discussion, or as robust as we want it to be. And it's okay to be creative and to use our imaginations. It doesn't mean that every idea that somebody has is going to actually qualify. There's some of the reasons I went into. There's some parameters you have, right? And then there's other things that might be too expensive. There's other things that might be, well, that's only going to cost $50,000 and we only get one project. So what, we don't want to give the other, $220,000 back to the state. You got to consider a bunch of different things when you're determining what's going to be an eligible project. But tonight we're going to just brainstorm and pretend I didn't say any of that and just say, what would you like to do? There's going to be a second hearing that can be next month, or it could be like 3 months from now. It's okay. We're getting a nice early start, and we have lots of time to think and plan and budget for this. And that's why it's really great that we're doing this in October. So thank you for that. But at that second public hearing, basically everything that gets talked about tonight, that's going to be our pick list for what can be selected as the project. So when we turn in the application, whatever you guys pick has got to be in the minutes from tonight's meeting. So we'll get a bunch of input. We'll narrow it down to what actually might be eligible, meeting those national objectives and the budget and so on. And then that'll kind of be our distilled list of what the council can pick at their second hearing, right? So that's what it means by reviewing suggested projects for eligibility and meeting a national objective. Yeah, I think I went over all that. We try to get the applications to SEGO by July 1st. That gives us time to kind of massage them, chase down last minute paperwork and meeting minutes and things of that nature, and just get it pretty so it's a successful application. Typically they're due to the Department of Housing by August 1st. With us getting such an early start, it's entirely possible we can beat that deadline by a country mile. That'd be great, but these are the kind of deadlines we're looking at. So you can see from that, we've got some time to work on this, and that's better than the alternative. Yeah, I talked about this, the public participation. And hopefully got through that pretty fast. I deleted a bunch of slides off of it so as not to bore you. So, Mr. Vice Mayor, if you would like to declare the public hearing open and we can start getting some input from people.
The public hearing is open now, and I want to thank Keith for his presentation that he had, and I do hope that we can come up with some good ideas and move forward. So just go ahead if anybody has anything to say. Lance?
I think I'll just start off to give you guys a few items that we've talked about in the past. In our CIP, we've designated 2 or 3 projects that are that we consider CDBG type projects. I'll mention those. They're in the CIP, as I mentioned. We've got a sidewalk construction project, 3rd Street to 5th Avenue. That's to finish out that stuff that Keith had mentioned on the north side of the Highway 70 there. That area does fall in. There's a line there that kind of cuts off the low mod versus not low mod, but it is an area that we consider an area that we'd like to finish sidewalks in. There's also the sidewalk area that's around the swimming pool area there, between 8th Street and the highway, from about 8th Avenue over to almost to the BLM office there. There's that little community in there that doesn't have a lot of sidewalks. We talked about that one to get sidewalk access to and from the swimming pool. And then there was also talk of Jensen Addition, which we did do some sewer and water upgrades in there in one of our past CDBG projects. We did 8th Street improvements down there, but inside Jensen Addition itself, there's not a lot of sidewalks. So that's an area that we'd like to also consider in the future.
Lance,
Yes, sir.
sometimes I hear like Gila Avenue and stuff like that. Is that what you're considering, Jensen Addition?
Yeah, Gila Avenue, Valley, in there around Sun Pumps, that area between Sun Pumps and back to 8th Street. There's not much sidewalk in that area at all. So that's what I consider the Jensen Addition. So between 191 and the Pine Avenue connection that we made there, between 70 and 8th Street.
That neighborhood.
Yep. And one that isn't on our CIP, that's one that I kind of consider an area we'd like to work on, and it is in the Lomond area. It's between 8th Avenue and 14th Avenue, between Relation and 10th Street there. It's between Leif Nelson and the middle school, basically. We have done a little bit of sidewalk work in there with capital funds. There's some sidewalk on 12th Street. It's not complete. It's getting kids to and from middle school to Leif Nelson. I think there's some that's not complete on 11th Street. And then those north-south runs in there, not a lot of sidewalk on those either. So that's one area that could potentially be a low mod qualifier and be a good sidewalk project.
What was the first location you mentioned? 8th?
The very first one,
8th Avenue and what?
the very first one was north of the highway.
No,
Oh, and this last one?
yeah.
So it's between 8th Avenue and 14th Avenue,
Oh, okay.
and the north-south streets would be between Relation and 10th Street. It's just that area between Leif Nelson School and the middle school. There's a few blocks in there. And that's kind of what I've got. Those are all sidewalk projects. Granted, some of those, Jensen Addition doesn't fall in the qualifying low mod area, but we did do a survey in there last go around and got it done. And if we pick an area that's not falling in low mod, we definitely can do a salary survey and see if we could get it to qualify. So I'll let you guys talk about others.
Seems like when we talked about this the last time, that sidewalk, north of the highway, we had talked about that. And weren't there some poles that would need to be moved in order to, and have those been moved, or is something still need to be?
I think we're still working on that. There is some poles that are in the way, and Dan and I have been discussing that. We've got time to, once we decide if that's the area we want to focus on, we'll figure out which ones and which side of the street we want to focus on and get the sidewalks on, then we can get those moved.
But that could be done.
Yeah. And I should probably just throw up this map just so you can get a little look of this. Hopefully this won't be too confusing. Kind of the HUD. Try and zoom in. So that area we're talking about is right there. So there's 8th Avenue and the Pepsi plant right above the mark there. So you can see that falls between two block groups on 6th Avenue. So everything to the east of 6th Avenue is actually in block group 1 that doesn't quite meet the requirements, like 42% low mod. And then that group, everything on the west side of that 6th Avenue meets the low mod requirement at like almost 75%. While I'm in that block group, so around the swimming pool area, that's all in that low mod area would qualify, and then down around the Leif Nelson School, that all is in a block group that is in the low mod qualifying district.
I'll just mention one thing that I'll just kind of throw out there is that the sidewalks around, what is it, 8th Avenue to roughly BLM? Thinking about our recreation committee and all that, and the swimming pool being there, that could be something I think we should definitely consider too.
question I asked, and the answer was better lawyer up probably, but, so if we combine anything with anybody else, say the county or Thatcher or whatever, and something else fails, we'll still have the lawyer up.
You wanna address that?
If we combine funds with them and somehow on a project.
Mr. Lopez, I think I understand a little better what you were getting at before. I was talking about having this, if the city decided to be the primary recipient, which you would have to be, that's how CDBG works, but you wanted to designate, let's say, a local nonprofit as a pass-through for that nonprofit to be funded to do whatever. Like, for example, Sierra Vista, they will sometimes portion out part of their CDBG money for a local nonprofit that deals with they run a homeless shelter, right? The tricky issue with that can be, doesn't mean that it always is, but it can be, well, what's the background of this nonprofit? Did they just form because they wanted our money and they don't have any real depth? They don't have a bookkeeper. Or some fly-by-night nonprofit that has more maybe ambition than they have professionalism. That's where the risk comes in. When it comes to combining your funds with another jurisdiction, the way to make that effective, I guess, would be, let's say it was a sidewalk project that went right up to the border with Thatcher, for example, and then they were going to take it from there with their next, CDBG funds would have to be expended inside the corporate limits of Safford. So I'm sure there's a way to somehow team up with other communities to combine those projects, but typically they're going to have their project and you're going to have yours. It doesn't mean there isn't a way to make something like that happen. I'd have to see something specific. If I could just build off of what you were saying, Lance, about sidewalks, just real quick, one thing to think about, and Thatcher is dealing with this right now, and it's going very well for them, but if you don't have the right-of-way for the sidewalk, you may have to acquire that right-of-way. And if you do have to acquire right-of-way, it's always going to be easier for the town to do it without federal funds. There's the Uniform Relocation Act kicks in, and there's just some additional bureaucratic stuff that you have to go through when you're using federal money as a local government entity to acquire private property. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just a little bit of red tape to have to contend with. Again, your next door neighbors are doing just fine with theirs, and they in fact picked a sidewalk project for their CDBG last year. So just something to think about. If you do select a sidewalk project, then my advice would be to get to work on getting the right of way before, so that you're doing it and you use all your CDBG money to just build a sidewalk and use city funds to acquire the right of way.
Keith, on that same note, if we decided to go down here across the highway and try to clean up some blight area, if we purchased that blight area and demolished it and turned it into a park, which is something we're considering down there, I mean, the park part anyway, is that whole project fit in there or just pieces of it?
If you've declared an area as a slum and or blight, and then you have a project that would fit in that area and it's something that's, makes sense, like a park perhaps, and it's inside the area that you've designated as a slum and blight, you should be fine.
Thank you.
That's it. Those things can get politically tricky, right? If somebody lives there, it's my neighborhood. Why are you trying to say my neighborhood is a slum and blight? I've been to your block. You're not looking so great either. That kind of thing. It can be kind of contentious sometimes, but it doesn't mean it will be. And of course, if the local residents understand that the point of this, neighbors, is to actually bring some money in to make some improvements. It's not like we're going to put a sign up that says "Welcome to the Blight," when you come into your neighborhood. There's a neighborhood in Bisbee that they did that with several years ago, and they've gotten a lot of improvements. They used to have flooding all the time, and they've got a detention basin and new streets with curb and gutter, and nobody's house floods anymore. Even we had a really good monsoon this year. And so nobody's complaining about the slum and blight condition or whatever now, because that's just something that's on paper in the city's files. I think I've probably said enough on that, but yeah, it's doable, yes.
Thank you.
I got one question for him while we're on the park. And he mentioned parks in the slide, and that's where I wanted to get a little qualification, because we do have that property we bought at 10th and 10th that, our recreation committee's talking about a possible park there as well. There's nothing there now. Would that be something that a portion of that could qualify for CDBG, or the street improvements out in front of it, or both? Is that?
Is it designated as a slum and blight neighborhood?
It's in the low mod area. I don't think it's designated. It's in the low mod.
We were talking about the whole slum and blight thing. You don't have to do that. You just got to show, otherwise, you've got to show that the beneficiaries of it are 51% or more low to moderate income. So if you wanted to build a park in a certain neighborhood, and that's like going to be a little small park that just kind of serves that neighborhood, right? You might have to do an income survey of what you determine to be the service area. If this is a neighborhood park, then you would survey that neighborhood. And you've got to basically get a 75% response rate from, so if there's 100 people in the neighborhood, you got to survey 75 households, and 51% of those have to be, in that low to moderate income category. And then there's like a whole formula that, I can help you guys with that, but it's got to all be approved. The methodology's got to be approved by Department of Housing before you even conduct the survey, so that they determine that you're not wasting your time doing it wrong. They've got a certain statistically sound methodology that they allow you to do. So you've got to kind of design the survey and say, hey, Department of Housing, does this look good? Is this good? Okay, good. And then you start sending them out with your utility bills. You put them in the mail, have people go door to door. I hear firemen are really good for that. It can be done. It can be done. Happens all the time.
Well, that being said, I do want to make sure we consider that 10th and 10th area, whether it's the street itself and maybe a small portion of the park, but definitely ought to be on our consideration list.
With you saying that, does that make it part of the record?
Yep.
Okay, now, with your, with 3rd Street, 5th Avenue, okay, I had them backwards. I thought it was 3rd Avenue, 5th Street, because I was thinking of drainage down that way too. But either way, when you do something, I thought drainage might be involved, so I'm still thinking that one, but I got the streets backwards now. Now, my understanding of the rules, and I asked you guys, that whatever we talk about tonight is the only thing we can carry forward to talk about later. And so, now, this didn't come up as an action item, but there seems to have to be action in this hearing. So all these projects, if we leave them in a bold description, we can still talk about them later?
Yes, sir. There's no action required tonight. We're taking the action, and that is to gather input from the public and stakeholders and yourselves and your staff. That's the purpose tonight. The decision would happen at the subsequent hearing if, and this is the good thing about getting an early start, if somebody goes, oh shucks, I forgot to mention the park on 10th and 10th Street, you do have the option of starting over, and then it's 2 more public hearings. It's happened. It happened last year, to be honest. It's a bit of a pain. It's a little bit more expenses as far as publishing in the newspaper and taking your valuable time at a meeting such as this, but it can be done. Did I answer your question?
So far, sir, because again, we're obligated somewhat, but then we're not. And so I don't know, so the only place we can talk about these matters is in a public hearing. Later on, if we have some of these items on an agenda, can we talk about them then also?
Yes, and we can, you can even have another discussion hearing if you wanted, the second hearing, or let's say it's the third, because you have like a work session, let's say. I've seen that happen before. What the rules of CDBG require at their most basic is a input gathering hearing and a decision-making hearing. If you want to schedule a work session in between to let's have a notice of quorum, we're gonna have a work session, and we're really gonna hammer this out with staff, in a work session, you can do that.
Good, because that's the way I feel about it. I would like to talk more in depth on some of them. So that's why I would like it to be still broad and not close any doors on our, when and what else we can talk about.
Yes, sir.
I have another one. I would like to give some consideration to either the old fire department or, using some of this or all of it, whatever, to address some of our needs there. Either remodel, working on the old one or giving direction on a new one.
I, of course, like all the ideas, is just, we
let's get them on
keep
the
going
list.
back and forth on some of them, and they keep looking good, and,
Well, this
I
is
wish it
just,
was 200 million.
well, this is just a step to,
Yes,
get
sir.
them out there so we can keep working on it later.
I think Keith hit it right on the head there. If we get a whole list of broad projects, then we come back in a work session and just talk about the benefits, plus minus of which ones fit low mod, which ones we'll have to do surveys for, to even see if they qualify. So I think if we just get a broad range of projects, hit them all. I think, and like
I
you
don't know
mentioned,
if that helps you, Mr. Henry, to do it
Well,
that way.
even a big project, like, a new fire station, we know is gonna cost millions of dollars, but if, for some reason we decided we wanted to put 270,000 towards it, that would be a good project, and we would put our funds to match it and do it, so good project to add on the list, just in case.
Okay, so I need to be quiet now?
But we need anything from the public. We definitely would like to hear from, some of the people sitting out there. Now is your chance.
I would like to see those funds do something for the low-income people and not just a sidewalk. That really doesn't seem like that does anything for low-income people. I mean, I live in a life, and I'm really frustrated, and I feel like I'm neglected my services because I live in a life.
We got a document, right? So I've got a little sign-in sheet for anybody who wishes to speak and,
I apologize.
Oh, thank you.
should have said something.
Yeah, I didn't understand the rules. My name is Carrie Dahlquist, and I live over off of Central Avenue. It's the 16th Street cul-de-sac off of Central. That comes in off of 191. And, we've been having a lot of, like the, city works, I don't know, they're coming around. And I live on an alley, and the city is like giving attitude like, I'm responsible for weeds that are on public land, and that since I'm living in a blight, that I don't deserve to have weeds or anything taken care of. And so I feel a lot of discrimination in this community, and I feel $271,000 put into a sidewalk is ludicrous. So this community needs things happening. There are people suffering, and I don't want money to go to a subject that doesn't help human beings. And so a sidewalk, unless it is the path taking children to school where there is impoverished children walking to school, that's the only way I would want a sidewalk finished, is to protect children. But otherwise, if it's just for work, and it's just the city's gonna get money to build another sidewalk, that's ridiculous. So, I came here tonight because I have input, and like I said, I am a citizen who feels I am suffering in a blight. So, I pay my taxes. I've paid my taxes here for nearly 20 years, city property taxes. And, like fire department, I would like to see the police department hire an animal control officer that is capable of their job, that, is physically capable, that should have been off the payroll 20 years ago and is still doing their job. I don't understand things like that. It confuses me. I was not called back by an officer today, and the dog I called about was seen again, and so nothing was followed up. And I am today an angry citizen. That's why I'm standing before you, and I hope you see a bigger picture into what money can do for people. Is there are starving members of this community people that need work, and just things that are happening that are devastating. So I want to see funds like that used to improve lives. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask you a question? And I want to thank you for your comment. Specifically, what would you be asking for?
Like you said, like if you were interested in a park, I don't see that children need another playground. Like we need a community involvement park, like with maybe a community garden, and that teaches adults rethinking and relearning, because as a community, we're becoming dumber and not smarter. So we need to put things out there that are gonna reteach people to be human beings again and not awful citizens. So maybe community gardens, and that, something that educates people.
Thank you very much. Was there anybody else that would like to add? Anybody on the council?
I'll add that I agreed when the first list was read to just be a list of sidewalk projects is a little, misses the mark a little bit, in my opinion. I agree that it needs to be something a little bit more, just helpful to low income areas. I'm partial to 10th and 10th, but I also like Councilman Lopez's idea to maybe hash it out a little bit more in a work session and I'd even like to step back and think a little bit more about what some possibilities are.
Because we got a couple of projects that could be in conjunction with some of the other government entities that I don't, since I can't talk to too many of you at one time, we do need to hash that out a little bit.
Well, then if there's, nothing else from anybody, am I hearing that we would like to carry this on to another meeting where we can, or work session? What would it be, a work session that we'd get into?
If you go to a work session and come up with another idea, like Keith mentioned, you'll have to do another public hearing if there's something you want to move forward with.
Is that what?
Otherwise, you just talk about it now. If there's a combined project with another entity, mention it right now. Let's get it on the record.
It's mentioned in the things that we can consider. Say the homeless. It's already been mentioned, so.
But you need to mention it specifically tonight. It's a homeless shelter, or just needs to be reported tonight.
Well, the last time we had this, we, like the lady's right, we need to use this monies for our citizens. There's no doubt about that. And last time it got broke up into like, 3 different, 501(c)(3)s. And I'm not saying they didn't benefit from it, but I guess I would like to talk about the homeless thing. I put that on the record. That's one of them that I've been asked, also like this lady asked it, I've been asked to consider that too.
And that'd be something I think we should, also, not just our council, but I'd wanna talk, on that subject with the other entities too. I'd wanna include them on that definitely.
If I may, it may be possible to table this to a time certain and continue it without having to notice it again. But this is a new one on me, and I'm not totally sure if that, so, that's an option for the council if you wanted to do that. And then I can go back and hit the books in my office tomorrow and tell you, you don't or you do have to do another notice in the paper.
And you know what, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to table it, and that way we can give.
No, you know, like you mentioned, we started way ahead of time, which is good. What would've been nice, maybe is to just, start some discussion outside of this setting, if that would be possible, would've been possible, and then, you know, have some ideas that are well thought out when we started the public hearing.
John, could we get this on Friday's work session and finish our list today? And if something comes up that we think needs put on it, then we'll start over. I mean, that's only a week. It doesn't put us far behind.
Yeah,
Can we
Vice
do it
Mayor,
that-
Councilman McGoy, I think that's a good idea, and I think there's some other issues that we may wanna flush out in more detail. And since we're so early in the process, I kinda agree, this idea of sidewalks being the focus of the money is, I think, something we've always focused on in the past, but I don't know that we've really flushed out all the ideas. And if we have parks that we're gonna build or parks that we're gonna alter that may fall within low mod, some of that money can go into those parks there. So I think there's quite a bit that we probably could talk about. And since we're early enough in the process, I mean, even if we have to come back and do another public hearing, what's the harm in it? We have the time, so better to flush out the idea and get where we wanna be. I think we should go that route. And we can begin that discussion on Friday and get the ball rolling then.
Is there a time certain frame you have to do it within?
No, sir.
Okay, that was just a question, I mean,
You could table it and come back to it in 90 days if you wanted.
And I'm just saying, Vice Mayor, if we do another public hearing, then it doesn't become an issue whether we table it or not, does it?
Regulations that regard that, so like he was saying, he'd have to double check to make sure that we could table it and then continue, or we'll have to notice it again, right?
Right, but I
If we
believe what
notice it, then we don't have to worry about it.
if we
Yes,
if
if
we
we just
renotice
notice
it,
it again, yeah, we'll
So-
be
I
perfectly
think,
fine.
I think I would rather that we noticed it. If we're gonna go for, I mean, we may be done, but if we're not, rather we notice it. We might get some more public that has good ideas.
Right, and Vice Mayor, Councilman McGoy, there's no hurry, so
Right.
why not sit down and kind of get a few of these ideas out there that are something other, we've got plenty of sidewalks. If we want to go there, we can, but why not flush out some of these other ideas? And if we renotice it, we renotice it, we have the time.
Okay, so then in that case there, we're gonna go ahead and table this, right?
Everybody else got something to hold on?
If we're just gonna notice it again, then you can just close the
Okay.
public
Close the
hearing.
hearing unless somebody's got something.
Okay, is there anybody else that has any comment?
I'm just hoping for the record that if we're gonna have another hearing, then I don't have to worry about that. It's broad enough to where we can talk about everything again.
That's the point.
Okay,
it would be a do-over of what we're doing tonight with maybe a little more robust discussion and a little more range of different kinds of projects is what I'm hearing from you all.
Yeah, so just to clarify, what we're gonna do is actually close this public hearing, we're gonna take it to a work session to have further discussion, and then we're gonna have another public hearing to mimic this one tonight, to put those items out there for the CDBG funds to be considered.
Unless we don't add anything to the list we made tonight.
Correct.
okay, so we're not voting on anything,
No.
but.
No,
But if it's,
We have a
if we
feeling.
put it on a list tonight and we don't add anything to it in the work session, then we're done.
Because sometimes we've
Right.
used the word consensus and it hadn't been a consensus, so, but I'm
Well,
just
this is
hoping-
just a list to choose from.
All right.
Okay, then this is closed for now.
One thing you're not gonna run afoul of the CDBG program rules is, having a robust and multiple episode public process. They have these minimum standards in place, but you can go as deep as you wanna go into that, and nobody's gonna frown on it in Phoenix or in Washington if Safford engages in a robust public process. So I'd want to get records of all those for your application so I can put it in there. Look, they had a regular hearing, then they had a work session, then they came back and did that hearing over. You know, the people have spoken, sort of thing, by the time we're all done, right?
That's it. Well, thank you, then this is closed. Okay, thank you, Keith, very much. And thank you for talking to us, you did a good job. Okay, then the public hearing is closed, now we'll open up our regular meeting.
That might be good.
Okay, and on number 9, under old and new business, everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 9.2, purchase of gas meters for upgrade projects. Raymond?
Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for the mayor and council to approve the purchase of 744 gas meters from Measurement Control Systems. It's a sole source for Honeywell meters at a price of $89,942.80. This will begin our gas meter upgrade project. This will be all meters over 10 years old will be replaced for temperature compensated meters. And after, this is the first part of a 2-year project. So this will be the first quarter. Next year, we have it budgeted for the other, about half of the system. And then the next year, we have another quarter. So we should have all meters replaced within 2 years. And then after that, after all meters are replaced, we'll start actually checking them for accuracy and just testing them. We won't have to replace them only if they fail that test.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the purchase of gas meters for upgrade projects. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir. You said this is the standard you're trying to achieve. This isn't the requirement.
This is a standard. No, this is not a requirement. Meters that are temperature compensated usually have a lifespan of 10 to 15 years, and we want to have them within a 3% accuracy. And the older the meter gets, the more inaccurate it gets, and the more in the favor of the customer it gets. And so we start losing profits off of that. And a lot of these meters aren't temperature compensated, so they're not as accurate as the newer meters.
So with these meters, because at one time you said our loss was below 1% in the
Yes, sir.
gas department, which is pretty darn good now.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
Now, some of these with your temperature compensation, other time, when we put in electric meters, for example, and other meters, because they captured everything for sure, no loss within them too, people gonna think their bills went up?
On this one, since our loss is at 1%, I don't think we'll have that issue.
Shouldn't be that fluctuation.
No, sir. The biggest part, it'll be, the biggest difference will be in our numbers. The difference between a temperature compensated and untemperature compensated when it comes to a normal monthly bill is hardly noticeable.
And I had asked you how long you think it would take to install all of them.
We have an actual time of 24 months projected, but we actually have, it'll be 30 months to get it completed in case we don't have that time. But we have it all budgeted for 24 months and planned for 24 months. But we have a lot of 6 months just in case.
And also Honeywell was the sole provider or the sole person that had this. Are we gonna get captured in their software and we can't ever change again? We're gonna be dedicated to them forever?
No, sir. Actually, well, we decided to go with Honeywell because that's the current meters that we have right now. And that'll actually save us $90,000 because we don't have to upgrade every smart point. So the actual meter right now is a smaller meter and it'll actually fit in the place of the current meters we have now, and the smart points will fit on there. So if we just, everything we have right now is actually Honeywell, so we'll keep going with them. And I looked at some other companies and I got some informal bids on their types of meters and their cost, and they were still a little higher than this one. I think the other one I got was from Dana Kepner, and it was approximately $107,000 for the same amount that we're buying for $89,000.
And thank you for your footnotes that backed up some of what you said in there. It makes it a lot easier to be able to read that also. So, thank you so
No problem.
That's all I have, sir.
Yes, sir.
What does 1 meter cost?
Currently, the meters that we're purchasing right now are about approximately $150. We're switching to a smaller meter with this, and it's $97 for 1 meter.
Okay, math, that's why I asked, because I did the math and it came out to 120, but, how long does it take us at 1% to get our money back for that meter that's off 1%?
The meters, current meters, when we send the customer their fees, they have a $15 base charge. That $15 base charge is for that meter replacement. So we actually, when a customer buys a meter or puts a meter in their house, they pay for a gas meter, they pay for the service install, and then they are charged $15 every month. So that $15 should come out within 10 years to replace that meter. And so that's how we charge the customer on that. We charge the customer a base rate in order for us to maintain the lines, upgrade the meters and all that. So that's why that base rate is in there. And when we do rate study, when we do a rate study, that's taken into account too, the base amount that we charge the customer, and that's for their meter replacement. So they don't have to pay for a meter to be replaced. And even now, if a customer wants to upgrade their meter to a larger size, we remove that money from the base rate and we add that into their purchase. So if they're gonna upgrade their meter from a 250 to a 425, 425 is twice the price, we'll remove that portion that they've already paid for the meter to be upgraded. So it's all taken into effect. It's actually, a lot of these meters should have been replaced a long time ago. They're 25, 30 years old, and they should have been replaced at least 2 or 3 times since then.
But they're really not losing.
No, they're not losing that much.
The
no.
amount that it's gonna cost to change them out.
No.
So,
What we want to do is get a standardized test. Once we have every single meter standardized to temperature controlled and a 20 light spud, then from there we can actually test every meter, 10% of the meters every year. And after 10 years, we'll have the whole setup, everything done. Everything will be the same size, everything else, and we won't have to replace as many meters. Instead of replacing every meter, the meters every 10 years or 15 years, which is normal for a gas company, we can actually just test them every 10, 15 years instead and replace the ones that are out of compliance.
so the ones you're getting ready to change are not testable?
No,
Okay,
and they're not up to the standards that we currently have, which are temperature controlled meters.
okay. We're not gonna change these out again in 10 years then?
No.
All right, thank you.
Good, question. Are we now obligated, or when we have meter changes, are we obligated to place it by the homes now, or is that on new homes, or what?
We, 90% of our meters are next to the homes. We do have some meters that are not next to the home. We'll replace them where they are. But if the customer ever develops a leak on their side of the line, what our current practice is if they dig the trench up to the house, we'll move it free. We don't charge them anything. And even right now, if they have a leak on their gas line and their meter's out in the street, if they want to move it up to the house so they don't have an underground line, they just dig the trench for us. We'll put it right next to the house, no charge.
Yeah. Now, do these gas meters, like the electric and the water, can you see them? Like the electric meter, you can see it in real time on your iPad, your computer, at the office. Can the gas ones do that?
We can do that. We have hour by hour readings.
Hour by hour?
Yeah, they send a reading every hour, and so we can get an hour by hour reading on customers that have smart points.
On the individual customer, we
Yes,
can
sir.
get it out, so that's
Yeah.
somewhat, yes, there, and, that helps it. And then you've already put stuff in place for leaks to help you, so.
Yeah, we do have if a customer uses over 125% of their normal usage, it comes up and has an audit, and our customer service personnel will go over there and verify that reading is correct. If that reading is correct and it's higher than normal usage, then we'll actually send somebody out to leak survey, and we do that probably about 4 times every month. We have some high readings that seem unusual, and most of them are like, they have a hot water leak, or, actually we've had people that have had, 3 guests over, and they, their gas usage just went higher because they were taking more showers,
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
That's all I have, Vice Mayor.
Okay, anybody else have anything? In that case then, we'll need a motion.
Moved and seconded.
to, motion to approve it, purchase of gas meters for upgrade projects. We need a motion and a second.
It's been done.
Been done. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed, okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Now then, we'll, move on to item 10, resolution number R21-028. It's a runway 12-30 surface treatment grant.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, Council, this is a request to review and approve Resolution R21-028, accepting a grant from the Arizona Department of Transportation Airport Surface Treatment Program for 2022 to assist in funding a surface treatment application and pavement markings for runway 1230 at the Safford Airport with a construction estimate of $391,610. If you remember right, I came to you end of June meeting. We previously accepted an APMS grant from ADOT for a mill and overlay of taxiway A, which was $571,000, and our share of matching was $57,000, and you voted to approve that and use contingency funds. Since that time, the state engineers called me, and we've got a CIP project this year for reconstruction of 826. It's estimated at $1.6 million. We're going to do that it was a two-phase project. We're going to do that in one phase, and they're going to give us that full $1.6 million. And since that is coming through, that $571,000 would push us over the allotted $2 million that ADOT can grant to one airport. So they pulled back on the taxiway A project, awarded this one for the surface treatment of 1230 in its place. So the one that was previously done would push to next year. And then this one would go ahead this year with the runway 826 reconstruction and basically get us our full $2 million from ADOT. As I mentioned in the last project, this is a fully funded by ADOT or supported by ADOT. They design, they do the bidding process, they administer the construction. We just have a 10% local match, and the local match to this would be $39,161. So staff is recommending that we accept this grant and for this surface treatment of runway 1230 and use contingency funds to cover the expenditure, and reserves would provide the revenue.
Do we have any discussion on this?
Did I understand that the match did not go up on the other project?
The other project was the other one that we're not taking. That was a 10% match as well, but the full project cost was $571,000, so our match was $57,000. This one's $391,000, so our match would be $39,000. So we're actually spending less.
Like you said, we're doing a twofold project in one thing. Are we gonna have to come up with a 10% match on that additional?
On the $1.6 million project? Yeah, we've got that built into our CIP, the match for that, but actually, they could potentially 100% fund that. Right now, that's going to the state board, and state airport engineer is pretty confident that they have enough money. They're gonna fully 100% fund it, so we may not even have to match that 1.6.
That's what I thought you might have said. Okay.
I don't really know what you mean by not accepting. We've accepted most everything. You mean by not accepting the change, or there's a change? Said we're not gonna do that one because we can get more, and it's
Well,
more than 2 million.
So I'm talking about two APMS projects. And so the first one I brought to you was over 500,000. And with that project awarded in the same fiscal year as our 826 reconstruction project, it would put us over the 2 million. So we're not gonna do that one. And they're awarding this one, which is a surface treatment of 1230, which is under the 400,000 or 500,000. So we can basically get $2 million of ADOT funds to do airport improvements this year.
Still a positive outcome.
It's a positive outcome, and then hopefully taxiway A will get an APMS project, the one that we already talked about. We'll get that on the APMS project for next year and get that one done, because it needs to be done.
Yes, sir.
And
Anybody else?
just to mention, Vice Mayor, members of council, this project lingered for a while. We didn't even know if we were gonna get the money for it, because it's such a large project, and these secondary runways, the federal government won't fund. So the only way to fund this project would be through the state. And for a long time, it was unclear whether or not they would even go the extra mile. So this is actually a really important project to get that runway fixed, because the state is the only place we can go to get it, and it's a really large sum of money, which is why we're doing this readjustment of the project. So this was a big win for us to get them to move forward with that runway.
And do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R 21-028. It's a runway 12/30 surface treatment grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Then we'll go on to item number 2, resolution R 21-029. One Arizona distribution of opioid treatment fund agreement.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. Yeah, it's a rather long title, isn't it? Staff is seeking approval of Resolution R 21-029 to move forward with the next phase of participation in the ongoing lawsuit against the opioid industry. If you recall, it was probably maybe in December of last year where we came and we basically signed on to the original MOU that said we were interested. This really is us going to the next step, which is to basically say that we're literally signing on for a reimbursement for funding from the settlement that they're very close to closing on. So there are people in the pharmaceutical chain that is part of the packet. It's in the Attorney General's letter that we literally will sign on and be a participant in receiving those funds, which now the next step after this one will be we actually will get those agreements, sign on to them, and then get funding to support mostly treatment in support of individuals suffering from opioids or having had experience with them. So this really is phase 2, and there will be a third phase after this where we actually are part of the agreements and we'll get funding. And basically that funding will come through the county and gets distributed to municipalities within the county. So we need to get this to them by November 10th to be able to go to that next phase after this one.
Any discussion or questions?
I have a question. On one of your sentences, it says, local governments are empowered to use settlement resources for constituents without state authorization of local government spending. I'm not quite sure what that means. That means once we get the money, we don't have to, there's no rules on it?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, there are rules on it, but they're built into the agreement. So once that money comes in and comes to the county, gets distributed, it's built into the agreement what you can do with it. So technically, it's not the state that's part of defining those rules. Those rules are defined within the agreement already.
So it'll still coming down the pipeline of what we're gonna be able to use the money.
That's correct.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R 21-029, One Arizona distribution of opioid settlement funds agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. We'll go on to number 11, the announcement of current events. Anybody?
No, they're not.
I just want to double check, because we've been talking about the work session on the 15th. I want to make sure that that's a date that works for council and make sure that we can have people attend. I guess there's been some question, maybe it's a timing issue. I think it may have been clarified. I just want to make sure that that date works, and if not, we can move it. There's nothing on there that's a burning issue that we have to do on Friday, but anyway, I just want to put it out there if there was a desire on council's part to move it to a different day.
I think I'm gonna be out of town. I have to check with my wife. Because there's a funeral. I don't know if it's Friday or Saturday. I'll find out tonight and I'll give Tammy a call tomorrow morning.
Is there any option dates then?
So I had sent out an email earlier to you guys giving you the options of either the 22nd or the 29th to continue it, into
I
October.
like the 29th myself. That's right.
I don't know yet. I have to look at my calendar too.
I agree with Councilman Seal.
Okay, I'll definitely find out when I get home.
I'm good for this Friday, I think I answered.
I answered you, didn't I?
So
I was
15th
one of
it
the
is.
maybes, but I'm, is it the 14th? 15th.
This Friday.
Will work for me. The 22nd, I'll be out of town.
Okay, then we're good for this Friday.
15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
It's too long, my week was too long, Vice Mayor, we'd talk about it, we'd be here forever.
Okay, then we'll move on. Report on operational items. An update on the library extended hours.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This was, I wanted to bring forth the operation hours for the library. I know we had talked about this in July, about extending hours to Saturdays. So this is the update I wanted to give about, we're about halfway through that pilot program. So just to give you an idea of where we are right now, we're currently open Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And starting July 10th, we are open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. On those Saturdays, we provide computer use, checking out materials, basic reference services. We don't do programs currently. And I'll explain why. So currently on Saturdays, we have 7 staff total working those Saturdays. 3 of us rotate every 3 weeks. The other 4 staff members rotate every 4th week. So there's 2 each weekend. We have hourly staff, and those staff members work the following week a shorter day because we do a 5-hour day on Saturdays. We have them come in at 9 o'clock and we close at 2 p.m. So just to remind you what that pilot program was and what it is. So right now we have a total of 22 Saturdays that we would be open. We ended up closing Salsa Fest weekend. We had railroad construction, so we made that determination to go ahead and close. And when we would also be closed Thanksgiving weekend, and that's just due to the long holiday weekend and the likelihood that a lot of individuals would be traveling or having family here during that time. So currently we will make a recommendation in December based on the door counts, how many are actually utilizing the service on Saturdays, and the circulation of our materials, which are our physical materials in the library. So that would be check-ins, check-outs, renewals that are used during that time. So if the usage were to continue to increase over the pilot period and we saw a need to continue that service, we would consider a couple of options. Look at the reconfiguration of our open hours, possibly be open different days of the week, or hire part-time staff that would only work the weekends to free up our other staff to work when we're generally a little bit busier during the week. So these are our statistics that we have. So I just pulled numbers, the door count on Saturdays, and I compared it to the door count Monday through Thursday. So in July, we average, these are all averages, we averaged 36. In August, we averaged 40, and in September, we averaged a little bit more at 43. So we're averaging about 39 a day on Saturdays. And I compare that to the middle of the week, and our numbers are a little fluctuated during the week because of our door counter. It's not completely accurate, but these are the averages of 204 in July, August at 159, in September we had 132, so we're averaging about 165 a day, and I also accounted for days that we were closed, so 4th of July weekend, and then September, the Labor Day. So these are our circulation, and again, I just counted what was physically moving in the building. We didn't count online services or anything. We wanted to know who's physically using the library. So we're averaging about 240 items moved a day on Saturdays, and during the week we're averaging about 567. So that's what I have. So based right now on the numbers, now that's not to say the numbers won't increase, and if they do, we'd have a different conversation. But right now, I'd recommend we don't continue the Saturdays after December, but we want to finish the pilot period, see if those numbers pick up, see if those change as more and more people become aware. And in December, if I were to make the recommendation to discontinue, I would also bring forth recommendations of things we are doing to kind of extend our services beyond the hours that we're open. Are there any questions?
Victoria, did you factor in the fact that Saturday is it, I don't know if it's exactly half, is it 4 hours versus 8 hours?
Yes, yeah,
Did you-
so,
Did you factor that into your numbers, or should we,
yeah, I
should we be
would,
doubling those?
we actually, well, no, we didn't factor those in. What I did is, for the circulation Monday through Thursday, we normally also pull our online statistics, that includes like ebooks and stuff, so we did take those out. But we weren't able to factor in the 4 hours versus the 8. Yeah, so if you could
Roughly, we could, the visitors at least, we could roughly double,
yeah, so it'd be about
that-
80, yeah,
the
so it'd be
count.
about 80,
because
yeah.
we're not comparing the same length of day.
No, no.
Okay.
I know you try to let people know what's going on. Is there a need for more advertisement that it's actually, that we are actually open?
Well, we've tried, the newspaper actually just put a new advertisement out, so that did help. We've put it on social media, we've talked with the chamber, they have an advertisement going for us. We did actually, based on feedback we received during the, opening after we were closed during the pandemic, we actually put signage on the fence, along the fence line here. We had that up for a couple of months until it got a little faded, so we weren't able to keep that up. We can make that second push for advertising. We tried to pick hours that we hoped individuals would be available, 10 to 2 on a Saturday. It's not during the working week. We have tried Fridays in the past, and that also did not go well, I believe. The numbers were unusually low for that day as well.
Since you were even live on the radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it's been mentioned a few times on the radio as well, so.
I'm just hoping it would work.
I honestly was anticipating different, higher numbers than what we were actually seeing myself.
And you say you don't have any events on Saturday?
We typically don't, because we only have 2 individuals on Saturdays, so it would be, we'd have to pull a third person, which would also impact us during the week.
I guess I forgot I'm retired because I drove by and the parking lot was full. It wasn't a Saturday then. I lose track.
Yeah, when we have a program, it tends to be busier, but like Science City, a lot of those we do during the week, since it's people or individuals are used to that schedule, so we've kind of stuck with that.
I'm hoping it'll work, but you're the one that has the numbers.
Right.
Well, and Vice Mayor, members of council, it may be also that you may be providing service to people who don't get it during the week. So while you're looking at the overall raw numbers, and if you double them, they get a lot closer, the other thing to consider is that you may be providing services to people who can't get it during the week. So you may be serving the same different clientele as well, and that may be a consideration.
Good point.
Right. And just to add, to make a note of that, most of the individuals that we're seeing are typically regulars we see during the week. They're just coming an additional day. So we haven't quite figured out, we've seen some families, but not to the extent that we thought we would see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next will, the update, commercial development process.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. Lance Henry and I have discussed ways to make our development review process more friendly to our staff and to developers. And I've been working with Matthew also to get some meetings together with developers, see how we could better serve them. I've instituted an open door policy so that people can come in with development questions, code enforcement, that kind of thing. So we're really looking at taking a couple of weeks off each development project. And so do you have questions, comments, direction, things that you would like to see happen with the new open door policy or anything like that?
I'm waiting to hear how it works. That's about it so far.
So you'd like a report in a few months?
Yeah, I kinda got feedback already. We know there's a different sheriff in town, so that's come, that I've heard about and stuff, so I'm waiting to see how all that works out for you.
Okay.
She provided some numbers on working Saturday. We've yet to see how the numbers work for the swimming pool. 'Cause we
Okay.
extended hours on that too.
Anybody else?
Jamie, I'd like to commend you on a good job, on the situation you handled on El Paso, right? And I want to say it was excellent customer service, and I'm asking you to please keep that up. The residents were very happy, and I want to say thank you for all you do. And Manager Gonzalez, thank you too.
Thank you. That's the direction we're headed, so hopefully you can see that it's being put in practice now. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll close the regular meeting and open, we're gonna move into executive session. So we'll take,
Little break.
take about a
When you're done that.
5-minute break, and I
5 minutes.
got this thing here.
Okay.
That's right. Strike it.
We weren't sure you could do it. It's pretty complicated.
There's all your signature papers.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you just thought you were done.
Did we
Let
do
me know.
everything right?
Okay, I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
All right.
All right?
Take a big old dog to weigh a ton.